Over the last few years, Ford have been bringing out entirely new models, but recycling iconic names to give them. We've seen the Puma name be used in a crossover, and even the Mustang badge has been put on an electric SUV. Now they're trying to convince us that this fully electric SUV is a Ford Capri. Now, is it a blast from the past, or is it just a really failed attempt at sparking some interest from people who remember the original Capri? Well, let's find out if it's any good or if it needs to be put in the bin. This is a new Ford Capri for 2025. Now, I've tested a lot of cars and none have attracted attention quite like this, and not just because this vivid yellow paint is brighter than my future. The original Ford Capri was brought out in 1969 and it was only around for about 17 years, but in that time 1.8 million of them were produced, and that's because it was so iconic. When it was first brought out, it was this really sexy sports coupe design. It had quite a bit of power for its time. Later models get different engines, even more power. But the biggest part about it was the driving experience, how much fun you could get from it, and at such an affordable price. And this one here, honestly, is a complete opposite. It's quite big, it's bulky, and it's a bit expensive. That said, it still does look quite nice if you forget the name. It's got these sort of square-ish style headlights like classic cars get. It's got Capri plastered all over it just to remind you, but it has taken on this kind of new styling of Ford where most manufacturers are doing now and everything's getting quite flat and boring. But you've still got these dynamic elements on it there. And those alloy wheels are actually upgraded to 21-inch, which balance out the height of it. And I really like these lights and that lettering across the back as well. That is 3D inside there. And these lights are quite nice having a little bit of curvature in them compared to the straight lines we're used to now. And even though it has that stylish coupe design that everyone wants, it still has a massive boot. Now, there's 622 litres in here with the seats in place, and that increases to 1,505 litres when you fold the rear seats down. Now, this is on the premium trim. The base model select trim actually finds another 5 litres of space in there with the seats up and down, so it is quite impressive. But whatever trim you go for, it has a really wide opening. There's not really a load lip there, and it gets a split level boot so you can store stuff underneath, like your charging cable. Now, as I mentioned there are two trim levels available in the new Ford Capri. The Select, which is the entry level, gets front and rear parking sensors with a rear view camera, heated power folding door mirrors, this cheesy Capri puddle light, keyless entry, a 14.6-inch touchscreen, and a heated driver's seat that gives you a massage while you're driving. Upgrading to the premium adds Matrix LED headlights with anti-glare function, a Bang & Olufsen sound system with 10 speakers, full Sensical seats compared to just partial in the Select, ambient lighting, and a fixed panoramic roof that floods the cabin with light. The interior in the new Capri is actually quite nice. It's very sleek, modern and tech driven. You've got a digital display behind the steering wheel, and that touchscreen just engulfs the centre console. But it does move, which is good for a couple of reasons. You can slide it up here if the sun is beating through the glass roof and reflecting off that and you can't really see it. You can adjust the angle so it's better, but it also reveals a hidden storage space in here where you can put valuables when you're leaving the car and hide them away. This centre console is also 17 litres deep, so you can store a 15-inch laptop in there. That's quite a lot of storage in one car. Just in front of these two cup holders, there's also space for two mobile phones with one wireless charging pad in there. This steering wheel is called a squircle because it's almost circular but sort of squared off at the top and bottom, and it's quite a good size. I'm used to this now from the Ford Puma that I had. My only issue with the interior is it's sort of lost its soul. Ford have teamed up with Volkswagen to share a lot of parts, and this to me is just a Volkswagen interior. They've done away with all their buttons. They now just have haptic controls, which are quite annoying when you're trying to do anything, unless you're trying not to do anything and you accidentally press buttons on the steering wheel. Maybe I'm just being grumpy. Let me know in the comments down below if you like buttonless stuff, if you think this new futuristic design is better, or if you would rather keep some physical controls. Another good thing about the new Capri is there is quite a bit of space in the back here, which of course was non-existent in the original. Now, that seat is in my driving position and I've still got enough legroom there. It could be a little bit more, but I just sit quite far back. But I've got loads of headroom here, which is nice. And having that panoramic roof just lets a lot of light in here and makes it feel more spacious than it actually is. The seats are slightly reclined, which can get comfortable. and there's Isofix in the two outer seats. And one benefit of it being electric is the floor is really flat, so anyone sitting in the middle seat still has the same amount of leg space as the outer seats. If you speak to anyone who owned the original Capri, you'll see their face light up as they tell you how much fun a sports coupe was to drive. Now, Ford claim that they've made this feel just like it, but have they? Well, for a start, it's all electric, and there's three different powertrains you can choose from. Rear-wheel drive models start with a 52 kilowatt hour battery, and that gives you around 170 PS and takes about 8.7 seconds to get from 0 to 62, which isn't all that fast, especially compared to other electric vehicles. Now, that does give you around 243 miles of range, which will be enough for the average person. However, there is a range extender battery, and that's 77 kilowatt hours. Now, that will give you around 286 PS and brings that 0 to 60 time down to 6.4 seconds. But most importantly, it gives you more range, just under 400 miles actually. But the all-wheel drive models get an even bigger battery again, and it's 79 kilowatt hour. Now, that doesn't sound like a big difference from the 77, but in terms of power and everything else, it is. That takes you up to 340 PS and brings that 0 to 60 time right down to 5.3 seconds, which is actually pretty quick. Most people don't get that in petrol or diesel cars. The only problem with that power boost is it does eat into the range a little bit. So even though that big battery is still a range extender, it's actually less than the smaller one because you're only going to get 340 odd miles from it, which again is more than enough for the average person. In terms of the drive itself, it is a good car. Obviously, it's a big SUV, and if you treat it like one, it does well. The suspension's really good, and it works great with the all-wheel drive to kind of hold everything together. And having a battery underneath the floor gives it a really low centre of gravity, which is great for the stability of the car. But when you're pushing it and you're going into some corners, there is still quite a bit of body roll there. And these seats, as comfy as they are, the side bolsters aren't that big, so you do sort of slide around a little bit if you're pushing it. If an original Capri owner was to get inside here, I don't think they would feel quite as excited by it as they did with the original. But if you forget the name again and don't think of it as a Capri but think of it as a brand new electric vehicle, then yes, it is quite good. And with all that said, I think the main issue I'm having with this is because it's all-wheel drive. That system is so good. This car is just glued to the road, even today when it's quite damp. I think maybe the rear-wheel drive with the 77 kilowatt hour battery would be a bit more engaging. You might get a little bit more feeling because of the rear wheel only aspect of it, and you've still got a decent amount of power there as well. So that could be the sweet spot for this car, but I've not driven that, so I don't know. So what about the new Ford Capri price then? Have they at least kept it affordable like the original? Well, sort of. If you go for the entry level one, these start from £42,075. But as you start to climb up the range, up to this one, they do get up to over £58,000. This one with the optional paint and these upgraded alloys is actually over the 60 grand mark at £60,340. So they can get quite expensive, but if you don't go for the range topping models, then they're actually not that bad at 42 grand. It sounds expensive, and I know it is a lot of money still, but comparing it to other cars similar to it, like the Skoda Enyaq Coupe or the Honda ENY1, it's actually similarly priced, and you do get quite a bit for that, plus it is a Ford at the end of the day. Overall, it is actually a good car, I can't deny that. It drives well, it handles even better, the suspension's set up really well, different drive modes are quite engaging, it is quick. That all-wheel drive is just very planted, which some people will love the confidence it gives them, and other people will prefer the rear-wheel drive that's probably a bit more fun. So it's not a bad car at all. It just has that issue of using the Capri name, which is causing it a lot of problems. If Ford gave this a different name, like the Ford Dylan, because I'm not that creative, I think it would do so much better. But if you're looking for a spacious family SUV with Isofix points, comfortable interior, panoramic roof, raised ride height, massive boot, then by all means go and test drive this because I think you will like it. If you used to own an original Capri and you're looking for that same driving style, I don't think you're going to enjoy this at all. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. Should they use the Capri name, or should they give it something else, or should they just put this in the bin entirely? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.